It's time. Pacers Bucks game 1 in like 12 plus a little bit hours. We're going to discuss why it's so important for the Pacers on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Friday/Saturday, and more importantly, happy playoffs. It's here, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, where you can read stories on what I think will define the series and why I think Myles Turner is the X factor. And today we got to talk about game 1. We're getting into the nitty-gritty. We're podcasting every day until the Pacers season is over. And your Saturday show wouldn't be able to come out on Saturday because the game's at 1 p.m. and that would be uninteresting. So to give this time to breathe, this will come out Friday night ahead of game 1. We're talking all about game 1 today, why it's important generally, why it's important specifically to the series, stuff that I will be curious about because I think it will lead to adjustments, and just generically why I think game 1 matters in a way that it didn't last year as much, but still does for the Pacers. Look, we can zoom out as far as we can. We talked to the whole Pacers rotation this week at practice at some point. Sans maybe Jarris Walker, pending if he plays or not. Talk to Rick Carlisle every day, and they all, I think, are taking on a mentality that I appreciate purely for its consistency, right? It doesn't feel that much different than last year, which is fascinating because the series, I think, will be defined by the differences from last year. But the Pacers came in last year and they said, we don't care about the regular season. We went 4-1 against them. We don't care. This year they went 1-3 against the Bucks. They say, yeah, we still don't care. We're going to do our thing. They aren't exuding like this cockiness that I think could exist for a team that won 2 series last year, right? It feels very similar in terms of the way they're approaching it and the balance they're striking between preparing by focusing on themselves versus focusing on the Bucks, right? It feels extremely similar to me, which worked last year. And as an actions over words guy, day in, day out, that matters a lot to me. And I think we'll see potentially in some ways a similar Pacers experience because of that. Obviously, their opponent being different changes everything, right? And we'll talk about that throughout this podcast, which will be a little shorter. However, I like that consistency. I like that they're talking about not coming out lackadaisical or too comfy or whatever, taking advantage of the literal advantage handed to them by having home court advantage. And that's where I would like to start, because that is a difference that you can talk about mentality. You can talk about prep yourself, your opponent, whatever. The Pacers haven't done it with this team. They have not had a game 1 at home. In fact, a lot of people covering the Pacers right now have not ever covered or seen the Pacers play a game 1 at home. It's been a while, right? And that is a new thing. It is very important for them to take advantage of that. You get such a big grace of wiggle room by having 4 home games in a series instead of 3, as the Pacers found out last year by winning every home game they played in the first 2 rounds. They only needed to win 1 road game to walk away with a series. And you could also flip that on the Bucks side and say the Bucks only need to win 1 road game. If it's game 1, that would make them feel even more confident, right? I think it's very important for the Pacers to use their advantages as advantages, because I think this Bucks series is harder than last year's. I picked Pacers in 7 last year, expecting Giannis to return. He didn't. Had I known he wouldn't have, I would have picked them in 6. I am picking them in 7 this year, regardless of health changes throughout the series. And so I think it's harder. I just do. And I think getting off on the right foot is important, both because of their advantage they have earned and because of just general stats about starting off a series. Teams up 1-0, just 1-0, purely 1-0 in a series. In NBA history, 878 total playoff series, have won 77.8% of those series. Land of Basketball has tracked this out for every round, for every best of 7 or best of 5 or whatever. It's crazy how valuable game 1 is. And this is a known thing, obviously, but it's a huge deal to win the first game. The Pacers last year were fortunate in their Bucks series to be a part of that 22.2%. That's not to say if they lose game 1, it's over. They still would have 3 home games and only need to steal 1 on the road to reclaim home court advantage. But being up 1-0 is a huge deal just on odds of 2 teams that were 1 game away from having the exact same record, right? Teams up 2-0 in a series, which is almost always the home team, if it's going to happen, win their series 92.6% of the time. Obviously, the Pacers were one of the 7.4% last year, beating the Knicks in the second round. But you can go through the numbers over and over. Even before getting into anything specific to this series, starting off strong is important. And I will get to more of why I think so in a second. But the Pacers can give themselves a huge edge that they never had last year. They were 0-3 in game ones last year. A huge edge by actually winning the first game of a series. And that will allow us to learn what could be different about their mentality and ability from last year to this year, and how they will respond to the differences in front of them. So it's a huge game just on balance, on focus, on mental shifts from last year, but it's also a huge game because the Pacers have an advantage they've never had before in many cases on this team. Tyrese Haliburton's never played a game one at home. Andrew Nembhard's never played a game one at home. Myles Turner's never played a game one at home. I'm assuming Aaron Nesmith did with the Celtics. TJ McConnell's probably never played a game one at home. Maybe he did once with Philly. Lots of guys. This is Bennedict, Mathurin, Jarris Walker, obviously the guys who've only been with the Pacers. It's a big deal. And I'll be fascinated to see how that alone impacts the Pacers or changes what we think of how they start the series. Now, the other part of starting strong in this particular series is very similar to last year, right? Everybody at the time, myself included, thought it was a huge deal when the Pacers won game 2 in Milwaukee last year. 1, because they stole home court advantage, but 2, because everybody thought at the time Giannis might return during the series, and any win before he got back was massive. Right? He never played, but it felt huge at the time. And it's also why the Pacers losing game 5 without Dame felt so devastating. If Dame comes back, it could shift the series, and that will be looked at as the missed opportunity, right? Health status matters. Ben Shepherd's listed probable for game 1. If he plays, the Pacers will have every resource every golf club in the back, right? They'll have every resource, sans Isaiah Jackson available. Dame Lillard is listed out. Tyler Smith, the rookie, is also listed out. He wouldn't have factored in the series anyway, but Dame is listed out. Who knows how long Dame will be out for? He is not listed out because of his DVT blood clots, whatever it want to be called. He's listed out for return to competition conditioning. He could play in game 2. Maybe he'll play in game 3. People have been guessing what it could be. There's 2 days off between games 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. That's very nice for an older Bucks team and a team missing a star player, which all the more importance is now put on game 1 as a result. I've heard a lot of I don't know how much better I think the Bucks are with Dame. And I guess in my heart of hearts, I understand why people are saying that, but I just think that's crazy, man. It's Damian Lillard. The guy hung 30 on the Pacers many times in the playoffs last year without Giannis and his gravity and ability on the floor. He can flip games on his head. I know it's been a couple years, but one series for the Blazers. Obviously, the Pacers need to take advantage of when he's not there. I get how it could help the Bucks defensively, but that's just one end of the floor. And so that's the other part of setting the tone, starting the series off strong, is taking advantage of Dame's timeout. Who knows if he'll return at all? I'm not going to guess about his status. I'm not going to try. The Bucks have doofed me too many times. But I am going to say that when he is currently listed out, if he does not play, the Pacers absolutely need to take advantage early in the series, 1-0, 2-0, whatever it will be before he returns. Those are just intangible reasons game 1 is more important. And every win in a playoff series is obviously very critical. Your odds of winning go up when you win games in a best-of set. Duh. But in this series specifically, we're going to learn a lot about the Pacers. They're playing the best player in the conference. They have home court advantage, and they will not for any other series they would play this year unless there's a major upset in the East. It's very important that they start strong and break their 2024 trend of not playing well in game 1s as a team. They played fine in game 1 in the Garden. Right? Officiating became the story of that game. They played fine in game 1 in Boston Garden, the other Garden, where their own decisions late in the game became the story of that game, right? 2 tough game 1 losses where they, in some ways, got in their own way, but some ways just lost. They were terrible to start the playoffs against the Bucks last year, right? Lloyd Pierce, I believe it was, doing the halftime interview on FanDuel, talked about the team and their mentality and their being on the big stage and stuff. Tyrese Haliburton, not very good in game 1 of the Bucks series or the Knicks series last year. And I think there's an element to his game of feeling out a series. I talked about this with Tyler Smith, but he was pretty good in Boston's game 1. That was his only fully healthy game that series. But I have not even touched on an individual specific basketball point of strategy from this game 1. And I'm almost 10 minutes into this podcast. This is a huge game 1, maybe more so than any other series in the league, just because of the Dame factor, but also because of the changes from last year and how that impacts the Pacers. So that is why game 1 is so important and why the Pacers need to come out ready to go, firing on all cylinders, whatever cliche you want to use. They need to look good. They need to break their trends from last year, and they need to show that they can beat the Bucks because they had a miraculous Tyrese Haliburton shot to beat them this year. They lost the next game, and their bench was bad. They lost twice before that. The teams have changed a lot between who's available and trade since then, but showing that these versions of the teams, the Pacers, can have an advantage and that they can beat Giannis, I think would feel good for them too. Because a lot of the chatter this week from me, from everybody, and rightly so, he's the best player in the series, has been about Giannis. If they can show that maybe that gap isn't as huge as people think, which I've actually gotten 2 DMs about, that I might be overselling how much better than any Pacers player Giannis is. In some ways, I'm worried I might be doing the opposite, but I get where people are coming from, right? If the Pacers can prove to themselves that they're that good, that they can beat the Bucks, that they can take advantage of home court advantage, that they can give themselves that statistical edge, and that they can get ahead in the series before one of the 2-star players that Rick Carlisle talked about being so talented this week at practice, that would be huge. And that is 11 minutes on why Game 1 is critical for the Pacers, even beyond any individual basketball strategy point. Let's talk about a few of those and why I think Game 1 will be important in that way as well. Before we do any of that, though, we need to talk about Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just simply managing your money and start building wealth. They have a ton of surprising insights, and you can realize how much you're spending on things like food delivery. Now you can budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. We are back here on Locked On Pacers, getting ready for Pacers Bucks Game 1. Obviously, make Locked On Bucks your second listen all week after making Locked On Pacers your first listen each and every day. I appreciate you everydayers listening all the time. Locked On Bucks, love Camille and Justin, love chatting with them. They're confident in the Bucks. They picked the Bucks last year too. But I think, again, this will be a harder challenge for the Pacers. Let's talk about the strategy part of this, because something I talked about a lot last year. Game 1 preview is the hardest one. We have no information about what's going to happen in the series, where tactical advantages have been created. And that's part of why it's an important basketball game, is because you see those things, right? You see where edges come and where adjustments need to be made. And I don't know if this is how teams operate, but this is generally how I feel covering games, right? If the Pacers, which happened 3 times last year, lose Game 1, the natural reaction, and I wonder how high up this on an actual basketball franchise gets, the natural reaction is, oh, they lost. They need to change this and that, and this cost them the game, and that was bad, and this was good. You know, you start talking about changes, adjustments, what did not go well, and how you can make them strengths, right? And some coaches are better than that at that than others. And when you win a game, the inclination is to say, oh, they won the game because this went well and that went well and they figured this thing out. They should keep doing those things, right? It won them a game. And so I would imagine, because these people forget more about basketball than I'll ever know, that teams are more proactive with adjustments, right? I think that's obvious. I don't even think that's a probably. I think that's a certainty. However, I think that winning early sets a tone for adjustments in a way that is very crucial in a series. And part of what made last year impressive for the Pacers to me is that they were always down early in these series, 1-0, 2-0, 4-0, and forced to adjust along the way to whatever the challenge across from them was. And they did find answers, right? They did a good job of using those adjustments to actually get ahead at some point in the series, right? We saw them feel out the Bucks last year with a 10-man rotation in Game 1 of the playoffs. Jalen Smith played their 8th most minutes. He barely touched the floor the rest of the series. Doug McDermott was in the rotation that game. And like a lot of fans were like, that was stupid. They shouldn't have done that. And they figured that out right away. They didn't go back to it. Maybe they shouldn't have done it at all, regardless of revisionist history on last year's series. They tried 10. They were like, oh, no, that's not happening again. No more 6. He's done. Obi Toppin, you are now small ball 5. Go make it happen. Add pace, shoot, defend the best you can, right? Doug, you're done. Ben Shepherd, you're playing more. That worked out. He made enough threes last year to stay on the floor. His defense is always valuable, right? That worked. That adjustment worked. And in another way, they stuck with things that might not have looked like it was working. Like I didn't think TJ McConnell was playing well early in that series. I said maybe they should go away from him. They stuck with him. He was great the rest of that series, right? And so early, if you let's pretend there's a hypothetical other universe where they win game 1 with that 10-man rotation. Are they tempted to go back to it? How does that impact game 2? Does that change the way they want to think about their resources in game 3? How do the Bucks change things if they lose game 1 instead of winning game 1, right? I know that sounds so obvious. And again, basketball franchises operate differently than like you and me talking about games. But that is something I find important early in these series. Oh, you're down 2-0 against the Knicks. You got to change who's guarding Jalen Brunson. This is not working, right? Oh, it's Aaron Nesmith time. Hey, look, the Pacers won game 3 and 4, right? That was a critical change in that series, among many things the Pacers started to do differently with the front court matchups and, how they actually played Isaiah Jackson after not early in that series, right? Like a lot changes throughout a series reacting to what has happened or what challenges are in front of you. And so that is another reason game 1 is important. And winning it is because yes, the other team is now forced to adjust first, but you're giving yourself a chance to be proactive with a lead. And so to me, the biggest thing, 2 things that I will be curious about adjustment-wise in this game is some of the stuff Tyler Smith and I talked about yesterday. One is the front court part of this. I'm actually not that curious who's going to guard Giannis from the Pacers perspective. Not that I think I know who it's going to be. If you made me guess right now, I'm saying Pascal Siakam starts air quotes on him, but don't talk like that this series. No one should say take Siakam off Giannis, put this guy on him. That's not how you guard him. It's multiple guys doing different things all the time throughout a game. It's not that important to me who it is, right? What is important is some other stuff, right? Is Giannis guarding Siakam? Are the Bucks switching on defense if Siakam is setting screens with Giannis on him? If so, can the Pacers get the ball to Pascal to punish those switches? If those things aren't switched, can Siakam set awesome screens to free up other players? If Siakam is being guarded by Giannis, do they just plant him somewhere else on the floor to take Giannis out? Can he make enough threes to punish that? How is that going to look? What's the adjustment to that if that favors the Bucks in a major way? On the Pacers' offensive end, obviously Giannis is going to score a bunch of points. If Brook Lopez is guarding Myles Turner, which I think many expect, that happened last year at times, Turner did very well against him in games 3 and 4, right? Can Turner spread out the Bucks? Are they just going to switch if he gets 3-point chances and try to scram him out of it, right? How are they going to defend that? Do they want Brook Lopez around the basket? Do they want Giannis around the basket? And then with Obi's out there, I don't know. Like, I think it's very possible Myles Turner's minutes and Giannis's minutes could be matched early in the series. But if Obi's out there, what kind of advantage do they get in the front court? How do the Bucks manage their front court defense? Who's guarding who? For how often? How much are they willing to switch? And what can the Pacers get out of that? Right? They don't have a lot of, like, besides Giannis and Lopez couldn't guard Siakam the first 2 games last year. They don't have a lot of guys to me who can match Siakam's post-up ability and like mid-range mastery. And he was amazing to start the series last year. Giannis is a great answer. Okay, if they solve that part of it, great. But like the Brook Lopez was the defense was kind of a problem for them last year. That's why I just wrote a story about Turner being a potential X factor. And so those front court matchups will tell a lot to me. Because if the Bucks look good and comfortable defensively, just with those sets, the Pacers are going to have to get really creative with the rest of their players to open up a lot of stuff. And they have shown, from Buddy Hield to even Bruce Brown to now Aaron Nesmith, that they will use wings as screeners, Ben Shepherd or ghost screeners or whatever you want to say. They'll do. And I don't think they'll be afraid to do that if Ryan Rollins or Kyle Kuzma is guarding Aaron Nesmith. Maybe Taurean Prince is guarding Haliburton, and one of those two guys is guarding Andrew Nembhard too. Those guys can be screeners, and that can be the creative way to like not care as much about the front court matchups. But I think that is what I am the most curious about in game one specifically, is how the Bucks front court defense looks in terms of neutralizing or not at all neutralizing the Pacers front court, and what the Pacers response to that is. And again, last year, the cross matching was a huge part of the series. They switched Portis and Lopez back and forth, and like Danilo Gallinari was playing and like not really guarding anything at all. It's not his fault. He's just a little slow. So that allowed the Pacers to easily adjust to get the matchups they wanted. Bada bing, bada boom. Their front court was really good that series. They won the series. Can that be a thing this year as well? Do they play Thomas Bryant at all? If they aren't getting enough front court solutions, do they trust him to shoot? Do they go to Jarris regardless of what's working on offense if they need some large humans to plant on Giannis. That is the most fascinating part of game one to me. Is I have the most questions about the front court matchups. Right, I think the backcourt, I don't know what it's going to be, but at least I understand the theory of just about any choice made by the Bucks or Pacers in terms of matchups. I would think a healthy Lillard, Nembhard's on him. If not, I think it's probably Nesmith on Kuzma, Haliburton on Prince, and Nembhard on Rollins. That's just my prediction. I think that makes the most sense, but I don't think you're terrified of switching that up. But the front court part of it is huge to me. And how that goes will dictate a lot of changes throughout the series, both because Giannis is amazing and requires frequent changes to guard and score against him, and because we saw what happened last year as the Pacers made changes and the Bucks made changes throughout that. The front court totally favored the Pacers, and it won them the series. So that's the biggest basketball thing that I think in the setting the tone for adjustments category is going to matter to me. Also, how the Pacers get Haliburton going, if they can or cannot. Right? What is their plan to do so? Can Haliburton do it himself by self-creating floaters? His signature shot is a floater against the Bucks. His biggest shot of this season was a three-pointer against the Bucks. Those are both tough looks. Like, can he get into the paint and create his own good looks? Does he require a lot of screens to get going? Is he just going to be getting off the ball so much that other guys are having huge nights? Right? Who is guarding him was a question Tyler Smith and I talked about yesterday, and maybe the Bucks change their starting five and it's Gary Trent or something. But if they start who they've been starting, I'll be very curious how the Pacers intend to get Tyrese Haliburton to his advantageous spots in the paint, behind the three-point line, whatever it is. If it's just a Haliburton mission because they feel comfortable about his matchup, or if they want to make it a team thing, and they have so many principles with their concepts and the way they want to play that I have confidence they'll figure it out at some point. But again, Haliburton was a slow starter in 2 of their 3 series last year. If they can get him going early and force the Bucks to go, oh, crap, we got to defend that differently with this guy or this rotational shift or changing our front court matchups even, right? That will be huge in dictating what could happen throughout the series. Those kind of things matter, win or loss. Like if you lose game 1 as the Pacers, but Siakam has like 40 points and Haliburton has 35, you're still forcing the Bucks to change things in the future. So there's a lot of intangibles in this game. There's a lot of new things. The Bucks have a similar-ish roster, and yet 4 of their 5 starters could be different from last year's series. There's lots of stars. There's differentiating X factors depending on who you ask. But it's the same teams. It's the same rivalry adjacent, whatever you want to call it. And it's the playoffs. And it's a huge game 1 for the Indiana Pacers as they host the Milwaukee Bucks. I can't wait. I hope you guys learned something or thought about something differently because of this episode. Tomorrow, I'll be there, of course, for game 1. Podcast probably from the arena. And again, we're rolling every day throughout the playoffs. We'll probably do a guest Monday, and then another game 2 preview like this for Tuesday. And then it's just go, go, go. A lot of guests during the playoffs. Hope you guys enjoyed hearing 3 this week in the lead up to Pacers Bucks. We made it through the regular season. We made it through the play-in tournament. I'm recording this before the game, so congrats to whoever wins. We'll see. I can't wait. I love the playoffs. Thank you all so much for listening. You can find me on Blue Sky and Twitter at Tony R. East. This podcast is a Twitter account. It's at Locked On Pacers. Check out my stories in Forbes to see why I think Myles Turner is the X factor and why the differences will define the series. We will see you guys after game 1.